All right, we're taking a break from the 2-minute to training camp episodes. It is Thursday, August 7th. No practice here today. So you're going to get me at least for 20, he says before inevitably. As you know by now, if you've been listening to the show, I go long. This is the Pass Interference Podcast brought to you by the indefatigable, industrious, and illuminating CLNS Media Network. Here's the plan. We have a grab bag today. Grab bag meaning podcast, radio cliche of we're going to do a lot of little stuff because they don't have the deep dives into a couple big things. Those little things are going to be 7 players to watch in tomorrow's Patriots-Commanders preseason opener. Okay, it's going to be Friday night, Gillette Stadium. I'll be there. In the meantime, you'll be listening to this, hopefully before, but we're not going to spend a ton of time there because the joint practice was the most important interaction the Patriots and Commanders had on a football field all week. That happened Wednesday. It is now more than 24 hours after that happened. So I'm not going to spend my time telling you about something you've probably seen tweets about, listened to another podcast about, watched a video, and dive into all of the stats. If you do want to do that, though, there's one place you got to go. It's bostonherald.com. Doug Hyde had the offensive takeaways. I had defense. Zach Cox was down there, my guy, helping us out. So if you want more joint practice content, it's over there. Today is a little peek ahead, which everyone else is doing for the preseason game. Again, Friday night. Then we have your mailbag questions. Every question answered edition. And finally, at the very end, leftovers from the profile I dropped this morning and had worked on for 2.5 months about Stretch, a.k.a. John Streicher, a.k.a. the Patriots Vice President of Football Operations and Strategy. I'll give you one more a.k.a. How about the most powerful person in the organization under Mike Vrabel? Because that, I believe, until I dropped the story today, was not known, but that is explained in the story. So, lots of stuff left over from there. I had 40 pages of notes on this guy that did not all get into the story, so we'll get that later. But first, preseason game. So when people ask, is this happened today? I think with Brian Barrett on the Ringer, like, are you over the preseason? First of all, no. Like, this is the ultimate sugar high, right? Week 1 of the preseason, where you get that little dose, that first drive, second series, someone makes a sack, a pick, whatever, drop, and you're like, oh, there's football. There it is again. And then, boom, you are falling asleep, crashing in the second quarter, and if not, definitely the second half, because the football you're watching inevitably devolves into this boring vanilla morass where they don't even put the logos at midfield to tell you where the game is being played or decorate the end zone. So there are some things that preseason is obviously useful for, in addition to just more product that the NFL can sell and attach to advertising. But when you watch the games, as I will be doing again tomorrow, don't watch the ball. If you really want to know about a preseason game, I think you really have to hone in on different players. So in addition to, this is easily packaged, and speaking of product, sold to you, 7 players to watch in the preseason opener. I honestly think this is the best way to consume preseason content because we know 40-odd guys are roster locks. You know they're not going anywhere. It's cool to see Drake May. I'm going to be talking a lot about Drake May in the preseason. But virtually none of that is going to sway my opinion of right now, a guy who would have gone 18 of 21 in team periods against the Commanders. Again, shout out to Doug, who charted every snap. I was watching the defense yesterday. Had it not been for 4 drops, I know he's okay. What I don't know about, and what you don't know about, are guys on the bubble. And that's why I say you should watch. So series to series, if you are among the sickos who are going to sit through all 4 quarters and watch every snap and listen to shows like mine, where we're going to bring you the film notes, might be a couple days late, pick a player each series and just watch them. Sometimes it's going to be 3 and out. Sometimes you're not going to see anything. Other times you're going to see something that you're going to file away and go, I really like this about him. And you are going to learn more about the preseason than you would had you just watched the ball. Because here's the other truth about this. The defense, if you watch someone on defense, is going to bring you to the ball anyway. The replays are going to bring you to the ball anyway. So watch the left tackle, watch the fullback, watch the slot receiver, watch the edge rusher, whomever it is. Just pick a player and do that. Which player should those be? Well, I'll tell you. That's why we're here today. Number 1, again, out of 7, no order. Land Larson, undrafted rookie running back. Second in the Efton Chisholm Twitter love sphere of Patriots undrafted picks. Undrafted free agents. He's going to make the team. He's so good. Look at these highlights, blah, blah, blah. Land Larson's gotten some first team snaps. And part of this is due to Antonio Gibson missing a practice last week. Part of it is due to the fact that he's got some soft hands and there's some talent there. I can tell you, in talking with some folks with the team, he's very much on the bubble, which means he could make the team and will need good preseason performances. Or if he does what he's done most at camp, which is kind of fade into the background, he won't make it. They don't know what's going to happen. I don't know. Land doesn't know, but you can find out tomorrow if you watch Land Larison. That's the first player I'm going to watch for in the backfield. How is he doing? Because we know Stevenson's making the team. Trayvon Henderson, God's gift to blitz pickup and pass protection, is making the team. And Antonio Gibson's not going anywhere either. If they roster a fourth running back, I would venture to guess is Land Larison, but they might not. Number 2, Will Campbell. Okay. This is a guy we've talked about a lot in the show. I've done a lot of TV segments about, and I use the same phrase over and over again, and it's mixed bag because that's what it's been. And that's what you would expect from a rookie offensive tackle. So real talk, he'll probably get 2-3 series, maybe. There was actually an interesting tweet today. Someone who covers the Packers mentioning that Matt LaFleur, their head coach, said that there's data that supports starters playing a couple preseason series, preventing early season injuries. And that the data backed that up. Like when they did their own independent look at it. And I bring up Matt LaFleur because we know he was Vrabel's offensive coordinator his first year at Tennessee. It's a long time ago. The point is, when Vrabel says all of the healthy players should expect to play, that's not like the Belichick, I'm going to keep you on your toes so that you're focused and locked in, to the degree that Bill Belichick did not tell them their practice schedule the very next day. But I think it's true. And so Will Campbell's probably only going to be out there for 3 series. Those 3 series should be illuminating. I would watch him offensively. You can see what I've been seeing and telling you about, mixed bag in terms of gives up a couple of pressures, has a nice run block, the mobility, the balance, the core strength is all right there. But don't take it from me. Take it from your own 2 eyes. Marcus Bryant, another rookie tackle. Keep this short. I don't know if he's going to start. He could start on Friday because Morgan Moses, a lot of load management going on. A little bit of an injury if you listen to Vrabel's press conference yesterday. He played a lot at Missouri after he transferred there in college. Little left tackle, little right tackle. He's done the same here in camp. Ideally, your swing tackle is not a 7th-round rookie. But ideally, it's not been the state of the Patriots' offensive line for years now, okay? It has been generally worst-case scenario. That said, Marcus Bryant could have a real shot to make the team. Marcus Bryant could be a guy who, especially as someone who fills out the prototypical size for an offensive tackle and has played both ends of the line of scrimmage, might surprise. But we don't know until you watch him. Another guy, Javon Baker. So best way I can put this is Javon Baker is as good as anybody in that receiving corps in terms of highlight plays, body control, the hands, sometimes the separation. The lows, of course, pretty damn low. But he's gotten more run with the first team this week. That is significant. We saw it first in a walkthrough, then at practice yesterday with the Commanders. I don't know what he's going to do with that opportunity, but it's there as Kendrick Bourne is hurt and Jalen Polk just does nothing to stay on the field that he should make the roster. Let's see what Javon Baker does in the game. Defensively, Joshua Farmer, another rookie, 4th rounder, defensive tackle at Florida State. He had a run stuff against the Commanders in team periods. He had a great screen that he sniffed out with Kairos Tonga, who just has stolen my heart the first 2 weeks. This tournament defensive tackle who couldn't stick in Detroit and Chicago and then Arizona. And I thought was just this late round run stuffer at BYU when he came out of the draft. Put him in all of my mock drafts. Might have even talked about him on the podcast if he was, I think that was the first year. The point is, he looks like a totally new player, rejuvenated, different, and I don't know what it is or if it'll last. But when he's off the field, which I suspect he will be soon, Joshua Farmer is going to be the guy in there behind him. And Farmer ideally is your number 4 defensive tackle. Maybe he's good enough to be number 3, which right now definitively is Kairos Tonga. I want to see him, though, with that same discipline, those instincts, because Vrabel, as we know, puts the film into 3 categories when he meets with the team. The good, the bad, which means you can fix it, and then the shit that gets you beat. If Farmer is engaging in the shit that gets you beat, he's not going to see the field. But again, we won't know until he plays. Last 2, both play the same position. This position has been stocked down as a whole, not because of them, but because the starters ahead of them. And I think they're fighting for one roster spot. We talked about this with Mark Daniels early in the week. Marcus Epps and Del Pettis. Marcus Epps was a free agent addition, started with the Eagles and the Raiders, got hurt with the Raiders, and is now here. And I mostly know that because he's just on the roster that I use to take attendance every single day down at practice. He's not standing out whatsoever. And it's not because I don't think there's a good player in there anymore. We'll say useful player, right? Like good has to be, Jabril Peppers and above, let's say. But he's another guy that I know for sure is on the bubble. And Del Pettis, who's younger, a little bit faster, but not as experienced, and now is in a second system that he's not as accustomed to here in the NFL. also hasn't made many standout plays. Either of those guys is definitely going to have to contribute on special teams. But when you look at the safeties ahead of them, it's Kyle Duggar, it's Jabril Peppers, it's Craig Woodson, the rookie at Cal. Jalen Hawkins is definitely making the team. That's 4. You could count Brendan Schooler. And again, as we talked about with Mark, this is a numbers crunch. And I know Kyle Duggar's got a lot of flack, and deservedly so. He's not been good at practice. Give up a lot of catches in one-on-one coverage against the Commanders. But if Marcus Epps and Del Pettis aren't good enough to fill one of those roster spots, if you cut or trade Kyle Duggar or whatever might happen, then that's not going to happen. So the first step of the Kyle Duggar conversation is really what happens with Marcus Epps and Del Pettis. We'll find out Friday night. Okay, mailbag questions. We're going to take a sip. I honestly, again, it is late Thursday. We've had a lot of heated practices the last 2 weeks. I don't know if we announced this as Andrew talks to himself and drinks alone, but this is another one of those episodes, folks. The episode segment, the gimmick that is taking the country by storm when you listen to Niche Patriots podcasting. This is shout out Barreled Souls Brewing from Saco, Maine. No clean cups, double IPA with a little bit of Citra. Cheers. Andrew drinks alone and talks to himself. Okay, Carlos. Hey, Andrew, are you worried at all about the durability and depth at corner? Hypothetically, who would be your starting corners if Christian Gonzalez and Carlton Davis can't play week 1? So we're already at 2 questions, and my man has the third. Also, how many Mike Vrabels would it take to defeat one gorilla? So let's work backwards. Don't fuck with any gorillas. Let me start there. The number that you probably are thinking in your head has to be twice as much. So the first number that popped into my head was 8. I'm going to go with 16 Mike Vrabels because you don't want anything to do with that fury and strength of a grown-ass silverback gorilla if you've watched any Planet Earth, which let me tell you, when I am not covering football, when I'm not podcasting, when I'm not fishing, when I'm not doing whatever else I'm doing, sometimes Little Planet Earth goes well with your morning tea. Moving up, who would be the starting corners if Gonzalez and Carlton Davis can't play week 1? First of all, I would not worry about Christian Gonzalez. He has been at practice, which means he's been seen by the media. And that tells me that his injury is not significant because if it was, he'd be treated like the players we know are dealing with significant injuries or serious. Let's call them serious. And those guys are just not seen or they're on the lower field. He, meanwhile, had a sleeve on his leg after that injury, left leg injury last week. And the day after the sleeve is gone. We haven't seen it back. He's walking without a limp. I think he'll be fine. Carlton Davis, on the other hand, no clue. And I've checked in on this. I get no answers. The man would be a ghost if it were not for the walkthroughs that I've been attending because it's the only time we've seen him. That said, his presence at the walkthroughs, some of which have not featured other veterans, okay, is a little encouraging. Carlton Davis' history, though, of missing games when he does play football is discouraging. That's 5 per season over the last 4 or 5 years. So who would be the starting corners? The guys that we've seen outside so far. Alex Austin, TJ James, unless Marcus Jones takes the place of Alex Austin because Alex Austin is in at nickel. Marcus Jones is their starting nickel. He's better at nickel. But when they started their team periods against the Commanders on Wednesday, they had Marcus Jones and DJ James. Then Alex Austin came in and they kicked Marcus inside. Last one, going further up. Are you worried at all about the durability and depth of corner? I'm not right now because honestly, like DJ James has had a good camp. Alex Austin has had really good practices mixed in with some meh ones. And when you look across the league, most teams have not been as rich in good corners as the Patriots have. This goes from Steph Gilmore. You want to go all the way back to Ty Law? Fine. Point is, I think we're a little spoiled here when it comes to corners and specifically the depth in a way that we have not been. And I say this is all observers of Patriots football with wide receivers. So I'm not worried whatsoever. They've got a lot of good, capable players back there. Kyle, can you name a few players who have surprisingly impressed and disappointed you so far in camp? So disappointed is going to be Kyle Duggar. And I asked him about this on Tuesday after that walkthrough, how much of it is scheme change, because we know he's healthy. And we know that he played through a high ankle sprain, the twisting of his lower leg bones for 3 months last year. So when he sucked playing on lower leg bones that were not in their proper place, I personally gave him a free pass. You don't have to, but the point is now that's fixed. And he still is like a half step slow. So Kyle Duggar has definitely been a disappointment. Cole Strange, another disappointment. Covered this before. I think he's on the roster bubble. I think there's a case that he would get cut if they had to decide their 53-man roster tomorrow. Impressed. Man, I love Pop Douglas as much as the next guy, but for him to emerge consistently as their number one option, aside from when Drake May decides, hey, I'm going to throw this first pass to Stephon Diggs to start almost every single 11-on-11 period, he's absolutely impressed. And I know that doesn't sound surprising that Pop Douglas is doing well in practice, but the degree to which he's consistently getting those targets, making those catches, et cetera, has exceeded my expectations. Jared Wilson is also in the mix. We talk about him a lot on those 2-minute recaps. The rookie who's taking that left guard spot. And Kyrus Tonga and Caleb Chason are the ones on defense because Chason missed 3 practices this week. He still leads the team with 6 sacks in training camp by my count. It's a guy who took a 1-year flyer for $5 million. He's not going to start, but your third edge rusher, he looks awesome, as well as Tonga, who we already talked about. John, do you think Kyle Duggar, speaking of the devil, and or Ramondre Stevenson are legit trade candidates? No. This is because of finances. The Patriots still owe Kyle Duggar about $14.25 million guaranteed, which would mean that is the resulting dead cap hit that they would take if they cut him anytime in the next few weeks. Stevenson looks good. I don't think you would also get much more than a 6th-round pick for a guy who's been hurt the last couple of years and is probably just past his physical prime as a running back. Again, not speaking regular day life, not speaking about other positions, just that running back with that mileage. Teams were like, why don't we just draft one the way that you did, New England Patriots, with TreVeyon Henderson, who has been outstanding. So I don't think they're legit trade candidates. It's more to do with circumstances, their age, contract, than it does with what I think of them as players. It's what the other teams think of them that matters most when you get in trade talks. And I just don't think there's a lot of interest there. And again, for the Patriots to offload Kyle Duggar's contract, where he could just play, even if he's overpaid, versus give you nothing. Jordan, what's your confidence level? Alex often could be a week 1 corner. I mean, I don't know, 52%. Like what? The last confidence level that I remember dealing with was a stat class in high school, and not much about that class is coming back to me. So yeah, 52%, by the way, is above average. It's also to say that, yeah, he could be out there. We've seen him. I just think when you ask that question, you're probably going, how well could he start and perform well? And I think that's in there, but he's a young player without a big sample size for his career. This summer has been encouraging. I just would much prefer the 2 guys ahead of him, who I think are much better. Corey, hey, Andrew, I've heard projected wins for the Patriots range anywhere from 6 to 11. Is there something you feel that is flying under the radar with this team that you could see them reach that 9 to 11 range? Well, this brings me in a couple of minutes to Stretch, who we know is going to handle game management for Mike Vrabel, as he did with the Titans. Okay, it's the thing he's most famous for, aside from this sterling profile in the Herald. And I bring that up because we have exhausted a lot of talk about players and positions and breakout candidates and cut candidates and play style, McDaniel system, yada, yada, yada. The one thing we have not talked about is the Patriots' aggression on 4th down, where they have ranked at the bottom of the league and basically the recent history of the NFL. I'm talking last year. I'm talking the last 3 years. I'm talking the last 6, 7, 8, maybe 10 seasons under Bill Belichick, who midway through his career, Aaron Schatz talked about this last time we had them on the pod, just suddenly stopped being aggressive. Even with Tom Brady, even with sometimes excellent defenses, 4th down came and he backed away. Mike Vrabel's not doing that. This is going to be a team, you could say rooted in analytics, and then I'll get 20% of you be like, oh, the nerds are taking over. Man, when did these big football men, these big brave leaders of men, get so scared of a couple of inches, okay, where they don't go for it on 4th down? So if you're going to make fun of the nerds for saying you should go for this, that gives them, in my opinion, bigger balls than the men you look up to for having los cojones. Anyway, rants aside, I think they're going to go for it on 4th down. I think they're going to be smarter with their clock management and their game management. And when you look at things that Commanders did, aside from draft Jane Daniels, who had a historically great rookie season as a quarterback, we all know this, 7th in MVP voting. They were 20 of 23 on 4th down. Some of that, of course, is luck and having a running quarterback who is experienced and excellent in the option game, some quick game, excellent, ballsy, clutch, all that stuff. And it's unlikely the Patriots can have an 87% success rate. But what they can do, instead of matching the 20 successes out of the 23 tries, is just match the 23 tries, which they have not done in a long, long time, at least when given the opportunity to make those calls. They backed away, they punted, they've done whatever. I think that aggression, when you take those risks, can take you from 8 wins to 9, maybe 9 to 10, and as Corey said, maybe 11. All right, we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 mailbag questions left, and then a lot of stretch leftovers. But in the meantime, we're going to take a quick break. Prize Picks is back, America's #1 daily fantasy sports app, and the best place to turn your sports knowledge into cash. With millions of members, Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to people who've never even played fantasy sports. Because here's how simple it is. I'm watching the Sox on Tuesday at home, and I think Cedar Rafaela, who's on fire, or Jaron Duran, who's not, or Raymond Anthony, who's really coming into form, will have a certain number of hits or runs, or maybe a home run, or Walker Buehler's going to give up a lot of hits, but maybe bounce back. Boom. Those thoughts, those takes turn into cash, but only at Prize Picks. And here's how it works. All you have to do is build a lineup of 2 to 6 players. Every player comes with a stat. It could be hits, it could be runs, it could be walks. And we get into the football season, yards, touchdowns, you name it. They've got more stats and players than you can think of. You look at that player, you see their stat. You pick more or you pick less, and you do this for 2, 3, 4, 5, or even 6 players. Lock in your lineup, and that's it. You can win cash. Withdraw it via Venmo, Apple Pay, however you want, quick and easy deposits. Again, you can mix players from sports, different games, teams, whatever it is. The best place to win cash while watching sports, so don't wait anymore. I have it, still playing all summer, and will straight through the end of the year. Download the app today. Use code CLNS. This is the best part. To get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game. All right, look at us. We are, I said 20 minutes at the top and then admitted we're going to go longer. Here we are, well longer than 20 minutes. Let's go a little bit faster. Internet Brendan. This is from Blue Sky, by the way. Those are from X, Twitter, whatever you call it, just not Nazi Grok. If you want to follow me in either place, great. Thumbs up. If you want to follow the YouTube channel, all the better. _ at Andrew Callahan. And it's the same over at Blue Sky where I'm posting everything too. So there's no favoritism. It's just more of me. Brendan, quote, has McDaniels changed or simplified the route combinations? I haven't seen much about the receivers running wrong routes this camp, and it seemed to happen a lot during the Brady era. So I can't speak to this directly, Brendan, but from what I've watched at camp, meaning directly, like I haven't seen the playbook and I've not asked anyone about this. So people in my chair now could opine about, oh yeah, I think this or that, or I know this. I'm not going to tell you I have this down cold. But what I feel, what I sense, what I see is that you have reduced not the route combinations themselves, of which there's a finite limited number that a lot of the teams use the same exact combinations. It's the number of reads that I think have been decluttered, okay, decreased, which resulted in those wrong routes, as you put it, okay? And that puts a little less on the plate mentally of these receivers because it's not just a matter of where you're going to be, then where you're going to motion, okay? Then what is the leverage of the corner? Meaning, is the inside me? Is the outside me? How many safeties are there? Which is a lot. And this is common pre-snap in the NFL. It's then, as I take my first steps, was there a safety rotation? How far am I away from the corner? What do I see the guy that I'm in concert with doing? Because all of those different factors can affect where you're going to go next. Left, right, maybe take this and have a little fade off to the sideline. So I don't know that all those reads are gone, but the way that we've not seen, as you suggested, again, the wrong routes in camp, the ball's just going to no one because the receiver broke the other way. In concert with comments that Mike Vrabel's made and the arrivals of Thomas Brown and Todd Downing, they've done a better job of grouping everything McDaniels wants to do into different families of routes. So, for example, there's a really common route concept that everyone uses along the sideline, okay? It's sometimes called levels or sail, and you basically have a route at every single level of the field. So one in the flat, short to the sideline, that's like 3 to 5 yards, okay? These are estimates. It depends on the team and the route. You have another one intermediate, okay? This is going to be like a deep out, 10 to 12. And then you have another that's a corner that would go 18 to 22 yards. So that way, any zone defender on the sideline has to pick between short and medium or medium and long, okay? And there's just nothing that's going to happen there. And man coverage, you've got options because they're all outbreakers anyway. The point is, when they teach stuff like that, I think what they've done is put it into buckets. So instead of thinking of every single play as its own individual entity with all of these different reads, players now know, okay, it's in this bucket. And when things are levels, these are my reads or these are your adjustments, okay? So it's like thinking of, all of the wars in history, okay? I can bucket the ones that are American wars wars that are in the 18th century, whatever you want to do. When you put it in those categories, you can kind of limit the characters and the outcomes when you're searching for what's the right answer to this question. If you were studying, for example, again, in social studies, what that's going to be. Before, I think it was, here's the whole playbook. Everyone's got to learn. And the teaching was different. Now I think it's better because I know they're running meetings different, which I'll get to when we talk about stretch. Hopefully that'll make sense. Chris, quote, does Morgan Moses in his limited practice time look better than the next two in line? I know Mike Onwenu was drafted. That was great. So he's talking in line, like further to Morgan Moses's left as the right tackle. Mike Onwenu was drafted during COVID, but is there any way to compare Bryant versus Onwenu? So I think he's talking about Marcus Bryant. There's not a way to do that because Mike Onwenu is playing only right guard. Marcus Bryant is playing left and right tackle. There is, though, something to be said for playing a while in college and having a lot of experience so that you can pick up systems a little bit faster. Okay, Mike Onwenu came from a pro-style run game at Michigan. A lot of power, a lot of counter. Crunch is another play, trap, all this different stuff. And so when he came to a power scheme in New England at the time with Cam Newton, boy, guy was ready to go. So Morgan Moses has been fine. He's honestly underwhelmed a little bit. And I don't know that Mike Onwenu would play right tackle, honestly, if he went down. I think the way that they've repped so far, they see him as a guard, just like they see Caden Wallace as a guard, former tackle here with the Patriots last year as a rookie. And that's that. So it would be Bryant or DeMontre Jacobs if Morgan Moses went down. 3 more. Football king in space. God bless. Is Kendrick Bourne gone/cut? Nobody talks about him. It seems like he is the odd man out. Talked about this a while with Mark Daniels, again, in the previous episode. I'll just say the injury came at a terrible time for him, who's had 2 catches from Drake May, all of camp, routinely repped with the second team, and I think needs the Patriots to want to keep 6 receivers if he's going to make the team. D. Witzgall. Does Jared Wilson moving to guard suggest that the offense will be using more of a pulling scheme, which accentuates his athleticism? I love the attention here to detail and the curiosity, but I got to tell you, my guy, this is more about who sucks the least. And that's a little crude in my analysis, but teams just want the best 5 out there. And right now, this is how simple it is. Jared Wilson is one of their 5 best offensive linemen. Okay. He didn't play a whole lot of guard in college. So you know that when they move him there, that's what they think. He's better than Cole Strange, who has played left guard his entire career here in New England, aside from center for a little bit late last season. So that's what it is. It's not, they're not building the offense or changing it around Jared Wilson. They just go, we need good players here who can play these positions. He's among their top 5. Jason, thoughts on the kicker competition? Also reading about Garrett Bradbury struggling in pass protection, any chance that he could be cut. So the struggles in pass protection are real. That I can confirm. A lot of them are limited to one-on-one pass rush, which can be deceiving. As I've asked Vrabel about, talked to players about, but you still chart because there's strong correlation between the guys are good, winning, and the guys who are not, losing. That said, he's gone 0 meaning 0 for 2, 0 for 3 in several practices. So it is something I'm keeping an eye on. I do not think he'll be cut, though, because instead of having Jared Wilson play center, where we know where he did in college, they've gone from Ben Brown, who they're jerking around between left guard and center, and sometimes it's third team, and then it's second team, and then it's first team at either position. That's probably the guy next up. And Ben Brown is not a threat to Garrett Bradbury, as bad as Garrett Bradbury's been. Now, if Garrett Bradbury bottoms out, completely bombs, yes, okay, fine. They will take the guy who's better. But I just don't think we're there yet. As far as the kicker competition, I'll leave it at this. This is a best freaking case scenario for the Patriots. Like, this is – when I think about times like this, it also brings me back to the things, again, we, meaning everyone watching this team, studying, writing about it, has been through. For example, Justin Rohrwasser swinging football so far that they left the field and went over the stance, which if you've been to a practice, it's very hard to do. These guys have not missed, except for Parker Romo. 1 field goal is a 40-yarder yesterday. In the last 2 weeks, you have 2 kickers who have been near perfect, especially from 50, 51, 52, where they've finished all of these periods where sometimes it's Andy Borregales and Parker Romo. I personally don't care who wins the job, and that's because I have to report on it either way. Okay, it doesn't affect me. I'll be there. I'll take notes. I'll tell you what happens. But for me, the takeaway is things are going very, very well there. Parker Romo's been a tiny, tiny touch better than Borregales overall in the summer. But these competitions also are swung and influenced more by what happens later in camp, because it's often more telling what's going to happen next. Players that are steadily improving, that's a sign, even if there are some ups and downs at the early part of camp. So neither of them have won the job so far. But unless they both bomb, this is going very, very well for the Patriots. All right. Time for a sip, and we'll get into stretch. So I dropped this story today. It is probably a 15, 20-minute read if you've not read it, bostonherald.com, or you can find it where I post it, Blue Sky and X. And this story is important because he's going to be a major character in however the Patriots perform this year, next season, as long as he and Vrabel in New England. Because he will be here as long as Mike Vrabel is in New England. Unless he leaves to be a GM. And that's what he wants someday. And I fully believe, after talking to a lot of people around him, including people off the record and people within the team off the record about him, he's going to get there. Now, the difficulty in the story, and this is more of the kind of the journalist side, is that when I spent 2.5 months on this, starting in late May, to learn about him and what he's doing and who he is and how he thinks and why he is the way that he is and why he thinks the way that he does, I had 40 pages of notes. I'm talking like his high school basketball coach, people that he was an equipment manager with at Ohio State, guys that he coached with at Ohio State, James Madison, Texas State, obviously Tennessee, talked to Ben Jones, their old center, talked to Vrabel in his office, talked to Sean McVay because he was the Rams game management coordinator in Los Angeles, and yet did much more, as you can see in the story. And when you have a guy like that who has such range and experience and influence at 35, without ever playing the game, without being a full-time position coach or a GM, he's a one of one. And when he first got here, the easy thing to do was to reach for a comparison because we didn't know who he was. And comparisons are for comfort, right? I don't like not knowing things. I don't like not understanding. You probably are the same way because we're both human beings. So when you reach for the comparison, oh, he's the new Ernie Adams, it's out of convenience. It's not for what the actual truth is, because the truth is he's the most powerful person in the organization under Mike Vrabel. Stretch gets shit done. His real name is John Streicher, by the way. He's called Stretch because Terrell Pryor gave him the name Slink, and then Slink became Stretch because he's a tall guy. It's really that simple. The point is, he is someone who is scouting college prospects and has a voice in the draft room. He is someone who has a say on free agent signings. Guys that I know he supported are now on the team. Okay, this is stuff you're not getting in the story. I know that, yes, he's on top of the game management and analytics and decision-making, fourth downs, challenges, all the different stuff. He's also in charge of the analytics department on a full-time basis, as well as equipment and security and travel and all the players that want to bitch about Vrabel, because Vrabel can sometimes be a jerk, as well as a guy who dives into piles and cuts his cheek open to break up a fight in practice. He'll take those complaints and pocket them away and understand how to massage and manage the locker room, as well as sometimes the coaching staff, because this is what he did in Tennessee. And now he's doing more. Oh, and by the way, also coaching a little bit of special teams and hanging out and working with the defensive backs, because that's what he did at Ohio State. All of which is to say, when you think about his title as Vice President of Football Operations and Strategy, ask yourself, how many things within a football team exist outside of operations and strategy? There's not much. Like, the whole building is operating and strategizing, and it could come in the form of scouting. Okay, it could come in the form of a practice script. It could come in the form of analytics, whatever it is. He has his hands in all of them. I don't know of anyone else in football today that's doing all of that. And the only person that comes to mind who had, again, all of the range to be able to coach special teams, nerd out with the analytics, manage the whole building, basically, and scout on the road and with free agents at home with the film study, is Bill Belichick. And before any of you freak out about the fact I just invoked his name to this 35-year-old guy who's never played a snap, never been a head coach or a GM, I understand that he's not Bill Belichick. Believe it or not. What I'm telling you is it is incredibly rare for someone's life experience to allow him to gain all of these skill sets. And more importantly, the person to have the bandwidth to do this day in and day out. This is not to say that I think he is a genius or will be a GM and a successful one day. What I'm telling you is he's a central character that no one knew the extent of which he's doing and how much influence he's going to carry. You should care about this because he will have more control and influence over the Patriots than most every single person you're watching and hearing from. So, a couple more things about this, and then we'll get out of here. There were some stories I got along the way. Again, some off the record, some from people like his 2 high school basketball coaches, for example. They knew him as a quiet kid. He's 6'7", okay, in school. He found kind of a home, as a lot of kids do, in high school, when largely you're not the most popular kid. He was well-liked in some sort of like smaller setting. For him, that was the team. He could have gotten a scholarship to go to Marion University, which is in Indiana. It's pretty cool. He got Ivy League interest, but they wouldn't pay enough, so he goes to Ohio State. At Ohio State, he is there as a manager, then becomes a student intern. You'll have to read more about this in the story. But there's a moment in which he calls out a play at the end of a game that swings an entire win for Ohio State over Michigan. This is in the last seconds under maximum pressure. This was something none of the full-time coaches, including Mike Vrabel and Luke Fickell, who's the head coach now at Wisconsin, and Urban Meyer, who's on the sideline asking him, are you sure about this? He says yes, and they win the game. That's all in the story. Goes to James Madison, follows his direct boss at the time, an assistant named Everett Withers at Ohio State, 2 years there, 2 years at Texas State, and then goes to Tennessee. And this is why I bring up the high school coaches. So his second year was 2019, right? This is the same year that they meet in the wild card playoff game. And he was the one, by the way, that found the maneuver that Belichick had pulled against the Jets in that Monday night game of killing the clock with extra penalties and special teams that then the Titans used against the Patriots to keep Brady off the field. But before all that, summer of 2019, his high school basketball coaches go down for a visit. He takes them all over the building. He has access to every single room as Mike Vrabel's personal assistant. Position coach meetings, scouting, the weight room, the locker room, Vrabel's office, of course, everything. So he was already having a hand in everything. And what the 2 high school basketball coaches saw, for example, were high school teachers who were sitting in these position meetings for the Titans in early 2019. This is about May, just after the draft. The reason the Titans had these retired high school coaches sitting in the position meetings, linebackers, offensive line, running backs, you name it, was to evaluate their own coaches and say, how well are they getting their message across, these concepts, these teachings to the players who are millennials or Gen Z, who learn very differently because they grew up in a very different world from 65-year-old Dean Pease, who at the time was their defensive coordinator, and a guy who had won a Super Bowl and beaten Brady in a playoff game and also been in the Patriots staff. And the Titans had enough insight to go, these people who worked in high schools with kids who are now like the players that they had know better than Dean Pease might. And the points were, Dean Pease is brilliant and can go over a blitz for an hour. And that's cool that he can draw it up on a whiteboard. That's not getting across. So the Titans started breaking up their meetings, and the Patriots do this now too. 15 minutes. Cell phone break. 15 more minutes. Get up, take a walk. Stretch. No pun intended. Just get out, do something, and then come back, because that allowed them to maintain maximum amount of information as it was delivered. This, by the way, is also why I bring up the Josh McDaniels point of how they teach stuff is just as important as what they actually put on the whiteboard. So the coaches see all this, and they're getting all the insight, and the head basketball coach want to talk to the team pastor, and Stretch sets up an hour because he can with the pastor, and they connect for a while. So Stretch at the time lived in Northeast Nashville. So they go to dinner, they catch up, they tell old stories as everyone does in that kind of setting. And then, of course, the high school basketball coach, one of whom was in his mid-late 50s at the time, and then his younger assistant, who's in his 30s, go, hey, we want to go out. We're going to go to Broadway. So, of course, this is what you do when you go to Nashville. He says, no, I can't. What are you talking about? Like, you have to come get a beer. We're at this restaurant a mile from your house. Like, we got to go downtown. I can't do it. He had Breakfast Club. The Breakfast Club was a group of coaches that Vrabel would invite to work out with him at all these different hours. But most often it was very early in the morning, 5 a.m. These workouts, it was told to me, and this did not make the story, because, again, you just have to pick the stuff that's most pertinent. And I had 4,000, whatever number of words in that story. This didn't make the cut. Editorial choice. You had sleds. You had ropes. You had time stuff. Just insane workouts. But the deal was anyone who showed up a minute late, anyone who didn't show up at all, was excluded. And the competition was to see who could outlast Vrabel with this Breakfast Club spiel. And Stretch said, look, I haven't seen you guys in years. I would love to go have a beer downtown. I need to be there at 5 a.m. because he didn't want to let him lose. And this is a small way of saying, this is not only a person who's very smart and cheap, by the way. This is not me doing the old writers thing of rose-colored glasses, super positive feature, flowery, blah, blah, blah. I'm done with that. This is my 8th year. It's never something you set out to do, but happens very often anyway in this space. Coming back to Stretch. He's not only providing all this value independent of Mike Vrabel and the jobs that he does, and no one else is really doing across the league, all in one position. He has one of the tightest relationships of any team or place in the NFL that I've ever heard of or come across. And these guys have not only just been together, but there is an amount of trust there that even Stretch is not only just leaving to go be there for an early workout. So he beats his boss and stays inside the circle. When Stretch got the Patriots job to come over there and had an agreement with Vrabel, who knew he was going to go coach the Patriots, his dad texted him as soon as the news broke about Vrabel's hiring. He said, hey, you going to follow him to New England? That had been done for days. Stretch texts his dad, who he's very close with. I'm employed by the Rams, and I don't know. So if Mike Vrabel cares about this person as much as he does, you don't have to love him. You don't have to loyalty. You don't think he's smart. You can judge and see what happens on Sundays and fourth downs for yourself. I just think you should too. And I would encourage you to read the piece. This was a piece that took me thinking about this person more than I've thought about certain family members, if I'm being honest. And a guy that kind of keeps his distance intentionally. He prefers to be behind the scenes. And that's not good enough to me when you at home should know about the vice president of football operations and strategy is more important and more impactful and more influential than anyone else in football operations outside of Mike Vrabel. So there's some stories for you. That wraps up another edition of Andrew Drinks Alone and Talks to Himself. We will be back next week, 2 episodes. I'm also going to be in Minnesota, which means we're probably going to do the episodes where I sit next to Doug in a hotel room and we chat and look at each other occasionally, then look at you because you can't have it be too awkward. Anyway, lots more to come. 2 more joint practices with the Vikings next week. And of course, a preseason game on Friday. Don't expect an episode this weekend because I have film on Saturday and then practice on Sunday. And my in-laws are also in town. So I'm going to be busy. Anyway, if you have the time, subscribe to the YouTube channel. I know everyone does these asks. They say the same things. Rate, review, subscribe, blah, blah, blah. It really means a lot to us. And it really helps us grow. Good, bad, you've heard me say this before. 3-star, 4-star, 5-star. Ideally, you got a problem, you email me. Okay? We'll do it and implement it with the show. But your feedback really helps. Spotify, Apple, YouTube, subscribe, rate, review. Tell us what you think. Really appreciate it. All right. Enjoy the preseason opener tomorrow night, and I will see you next week.